Good day. This is Jolynn from WonHeart TV, and I got on a little early, and I'm so blessed to have someone. Oh my gosh, you're actually in front of me. Hello, Dr. Edith.
Hi, Jolyn. Thank you so much for having me. It
I'm
was
excited.
a little bit of a frantic get all the children situation. So thank you for having me. I wasn't able to join 5 minutes early, but I'm here now.
It's all good. It's all good, and I'm really excited. So let's see if I. Hey, there you go. So we're on a wonderful morning. This is a beautiful morning here, and I'm looking forward to this interview with someone special. Just to give a little bit about Dr. Edith, you say it, Abunte Chan?
Perfect.
Very good, very good. Yes, yes, you've been doing a lot of stuff, and I'm so happy to kind of be sitting in front of you. You come with you are a Harvard graduate, you are an author, a coach, a teacher, I love this, an explorer, I love that, a nature lover, right in my heart. But you became a holistic medical doctor, and I want to talk about your background. And then, of course, you are a mama of two little ones. So welcome this morning, Dr. Edith.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. And to the audience, thank you for having me in your car, in your living room, in your kitchen. It's a big honor to share these moments with you.
Yes, I really brought up a lot when I was promoting it on Facebook and in my emails about having you on about luminous children. This goes back to the time when I wrote a book on indigo children, and that was a long time ago now. And I go, oh my goodness, I've got to find out now what is going on in our energy field, in our cosmos. And can you catch us up first, a little bit about your background, where you came from, and how you got to working with parents with luminous children?
Oh my goodness. Well, I'll try to keep it concise because a lot of people listening to this call probably identify as indigos or starseeds, as change agents, and you're here to bring a more beautiful paradigm onto the planet. And I can feel that in this audience, and it's just really a big honor to be kind of reunited in this way, So many of us probably grew up knowing that the paradigm that we were brought up in was not quite right, but we could kind of tough it out. And we were maybe a little bit of like a rebel warrior, indigo warrior type energy. So I was one such child. When I was 4 years old, I saw my dad had a back pain, my sister had an ankle sprain, and they went from doctor to doctor to doctor, and nothing would help. And then this is in the 80s. And so one day they were like, well, we heard about this Chinese Qigong master. I mean, it could be just a quack, but what do we have to lose at this point? We've tried everything. Let's go give it a try. So I'm 4 years old, and I totally remember my mom was dressing me in this like 80s matching velour warm-up suit. And I was like, ooh, how exciting, something new. I tagged along, and you wouldn't believe it. In one single session, this Qigong master emitted his Qi, and my dad's back pain was gone. My sister's ankle swelling came right down. And I'm 4 years old, and I'm telling all the adults, oh my goodness, I know what I'm going to be when I grow up. This is what I'm going to do when I grow up. And so back then, all the adults said, well, that's not really practical. You can't be like energy healer. Who can make a living doing that? You should go to school, get good grades, get a good degree, get a good job, buy a house, have 2.5 kids. You know the story, right?
Yeah.
So I pushed and pushed and pushed. I said, I have to learn how to do this energy healing. I want to learn how to do that. So I obsessed about it. I was always watching all the like Qigong and martial arts movies, so I was growing up in Hong Kong, and there was a lot of like Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon styles of movie that I was just obsessing about that stuff. But in the end, the adults said, you can't do that. You can't do that for a living, especially if you're a girl.
Yeah. Yes.
It's not practical. You can't make money, and it's not for girls anyway.
No.
And so, but the interesting thing was, I said, well, if I can't do that, then I want to be an astronaut.
Huh.
And so my parents said, okay, well, we can open to that possibility. So you better get really good at math and science and engineering and really do well in school. So I ended up excelling in school. Fast forward, I have an applied math degree from Harvard. And the parents, immigrant parents, super hardworking, everybody's really proud. And then I find myself after getting that degree, I had kind of forgotten about that astronaut thing. And I'm sitting in a boring software corporate job, getting paid a lot of money to do things that
I think a lot of people are.
Yeah, to do things that I'm not very passionate about, right? Yeah. But, you know, there's this idea that you get swept up in the dot-com boom, and there's, you know, stock options. And a lot of my friends at that time were in their 20s, paper millionaires already. So you just get swept up in all of that. And one day I'm sitting in this software company meeting. I got invited. I was employee of the year and, you know, successful. The parents are really proud. You graduated from an Ivy League school, all this kind of stuff. And you're sitting in this board meeting. And I don't really know why they invited me, but I know karmically I was supposed to be there to look around at all these super successful software people and see that they are good people. But they're all run down, stressed out, prematurely aging. They're not happy. They didn't look fulfilled. It was like I walked into this room and like the record player came to a screeching halt moment. Wow. It was like, I don't want to be like any of these people when I grow up. Yeah. So I had this flash forward and flash backward moment where I heard a voice that said, is this what you always wanted to be when you grow up? And I was like, no, I wanted to be a Chinese Qigong healer. What happened? Right. And then I was able to see, wow, if I stay on this track, I might make lots of money and be prematurely aging, stressed out. At that point, I was in my 20s and already had all kinds of health ailments.
Really?
Nothing deadly, but severe IBS and menstrual cramps. I had all this acne. I was about 15 pounds overweight. Well, just more like inflamed, you know? Mm-hmm. So just all these oddities that people said, hey, you know, it's nothing. Just take some ibuprofen and sleep and, you know, you'll be fine the next day kind of thing. And I thought, wait a minute. I don't feel good. I'm stressed out. I'm unfulfilled. And I'm looking at all these uber successful people and they're like this times 100. I don't want to be like any of these people when I grow up. Mm-hmm. And so it was right around then, shortly after that, September 11th happened.
Right.
And that's when I was like, wow, okay, the world is not really the way I thought it was at all.
Right.
I need to, if life could be short, I need to step back and ask myself, whose life am I living? Right. Mm-hmm. And so that was right after September 11th, I gave my notice, quit my job and started going to Chinese medicine school. And that was, as you know, 20 years ago at this point. And so that's how I got on. This is a common question. Dr. Edith, how did you go from, you know, graduating from Harvard, magna cum laude in applied mathematics to becoming a hippie healer? And that's the story.
I love it. I love it. And that you did it so young, because a lot of people, we call that waking up. I'm learning different phrases all the time, but you did have a story in one of your interviews that I heard, that you had a moment in time that really struck you. Maybe it was when you went to some deal where you were fasting and you realized you could live longer without water than you thought, and that you had some awakening. I don't even know what to call it.
I've had a number of experiences like that. The very first one happened in 2003, actually. It wasn't fasting induced. I was still in Chinese medicine school and practicing Qigong. And maybe some of your audience members have had these experiences. Like the first time you meditate in a certain tradition or practice a certain type of yoga or a Tai Chi or Qigong, there's this instant like this coming home sensation, like maybe I've done this before.
Wow.
So with Qigong, it was like that. I tried to do all kinds of meditations, but somehow Qigong, when I tapped in and do the breathing and meditation and conscious guiding of the flow of energies, I could just always go deep very quickly. But nothing would prepare me for what happened in 2003. I went to a Qigong class just like I always did. While I was part of Chinese medicine school, I really took extra coursework in Qigong because I was so passionate and interested. So in this particular Qigong class in 2003, I dropped so deeply into meditation. There was no fasting, no special preparation. I just dropped in. All of a sudden, like one moment, I'm just following the teacher's guided practice. The next moment, I dropped in and just the whole thing exploded into trillions and trillions of pieces of love and light.
Wow.
There was completely an experience of a disappearance of the physical, that you're beyond time and space.
Right.
The size of the entire cosmos. And I often struggle with words to describe it, but I think maybe you and your audience members, a lot of people have had experiences that they've struggled to describe. So I think you can kind of sense into the feeling of this. One moment you're sitting in your body, experiencing a peaceful meditation. The next moment, explosion into trillions of pieces of love and light.
Right.
And I have no idea how long it lasted. All I knew was that this is home, that this is our natural state, that all of us are infinite beings beyond time and space. It was this feeling of so much intense love, intense bliss, intense joy, intense peace, all of it, and complete serenity and contentment. Like no more questions. All the questions are answered. Just complete contentment.
Beautiful.
And I don't know how much time elapsed, but eventually from a faraway distance, there was the voice of the meditation teacher guiding some later part of the meditation. I don't know if it was 5 minutes, 30 minutes, or an hour. I have no idea, but there was this moment like, oh yeah, wait a minute, there's this body, there's this earth, there's this life, maybe I should go back to it. So here's the part that took a lot of years to integrate and even articulate. Mm-hmm. This trillions of pieces of love and light, the ridiculous idea that you're going to squeeze it back into a physical body and pretend to be a physical human. Like it just felt crazy and ridiculous. But I was like, okay, well, there's a reason I still have that body. I should probably go back there. So oh my goodness, it was an almost painful feeling to densify from the size of the cosmos and to stuff it all back into the physical body. Mm-hmm. And then boom, it was this clashing of intense gratitude and intense love with intense grief and intense sadness at the same time. How that manifests was like projectile tears coming out of the eyes, just like a faucet of tears, just tears and tears. And it took me some years to realize, like, what were those tears about? It was this like profound gratitude that I got to go home and remember who we really are. Like who we all are, our natural state of oneness and love. That is not some cheesy new agey idea. That is a direct experience and a direct remembering of who we really are. And then this intense recognition that, wow, this whole game down here is so dense because it's all backwards and upside down here.
Especially this past year.
Yes.
This has been the worst. Crazy.
So that actually the good news about this year The good news for me having that experience in 2003 is that, boom, it woke me up to see reality as it really is, because there are those of us that incarnated here to write the backwards and upside down, to actually bring the correct paradigm that is in alignment with natural law and cosmic law. Like when you're in the physical world, how can you build a reality that is loving, honoring, respectful, that is aligned to the higher win-win in all the situations of life? That was that in 2003 when that happened, it just blasted everything for me and turned me into a seeker. I started reading thousands of books and doing deep meditations, going on retreat, and some of those retreats that you might have heard me get interviewed about, where I went in a prolonged darkness, for example, prolonged fasting. I did all these things because I wanted to integrate. Like, how is it possible that our natural state, I knew with absolute certainty that our natural state is complete unconditional love and complete peace and joy and contentment. That's what we naturally are. But here, there's all this divisiveness, all this war, all this suffering, all these weird paradigms on this planet that make absolutely no sense. How could it be? Right. So I became a seeker, just like I'm sure all the audience that's listening to this, right? If you're still interested in this conversation, that I know that we are of the same heart, that we are here because we're very sensitive and intuitive people. And that's a gift that we need to hone and cultivate so that we can use that sensitivity and intuitive skill as a superpower to help us bring forth beautiful new solutions and new paradigms that are actually in alignment with our highest truth, with our highest divine purpose. So fast forward all of that, it became many years, couple of decades of deep meditation practice, deep inquiry practice, a lot of soul searching. It took that many years to start to integrate all those layers, right?
Sure.
And
I think with this new paradigm that you were talking about, and how I got flipped too in a deep meditation and came out of it and went, all of this stuff around me is not real. It's not real. So if it's not real, then what? And then I started as a seeker. But this is a great segue into the luminous child, because now we're talking about something that you dropped into, and I love your work. You're working with parents, and it takes me back to my anti-bully programs I did a few years ago when I started my nonprofit, where people were coming up to me and asking a genuine, deep question. They said, you're working with the children, you're teaching them the anti-bully tools, nonviolent, but what about the parents? And then I started listening to you, and I thought, aha, you may have some suggestions. So can you explain first what a luminous child is, and are all children luminous children?
Yeah. So you've heard the terms. I'm speaking with our audience. I'm sure you have, Jolyn. Indigo, rainbow, crystal, all these terms, right? So these are just terms. These are levels and layers of consciousness that all of humanity is moving through in this transitional time that we're living in. So I think although terms are helpful, it's also really helpful to remember that we're all moving through these different aspects and layers of possibilities that a human has until we become fully integrated, like Jesus level integration.
Wow.
I find it really helpful to reference Dr. David Hawkins's map of consciousness from Power versus Force and all these other famous books that he's written. So Dr. David Hawkins, you're nodding, I assume you're familiar with it. There are some audience that maybe haven't heard of it, so I'll do a quick introduction.
Do.
So Dr. David Hawkins wrote a famous book called Power versus Force that I would recommend as one of the top 10 consciousness raising books on the planet, in my opinion. He mapped out this map of consciousness that I find really helpful to clarify so we don't get stuck in drama or like taking things personally when we're having conversations with people that seem like, what are they talking about? They're like living in a different world, because they are actually. So it maps out how at a different level of consciousness, you behave in a different way. You see the world through different filters. And that, as Einstein has famously been quoted to say, I don't know if he actually said it, that you cannot solve a problem from the level of consciousness that created it. Right. So in this new paradigm, we understand that there's these like journey of different levels of consciousness. And as you bump into like, bump your head against a wall with a problem, in the new paradigm, we understand that the solution is not to push harder at the problem, but to step back and see what we can do to raise our level of consciousness to be able to see a grander perspective on the situation and transcend the problem. So I find that, Dr. David Hawkins's levels of consciousness map helps you to really clarify, okay, where am I at in this situation and how can I shift up? So the levels, I don't have it handy, but you guys can look it up on the internet too. It starts with things like shame and apathy and grief, these kinds of levels, and gradually gets up to anger, pride, courage. So on a scale of 1,000, when you get up to courage, that's considered 200. And then it keeps going up higher and higher to levels like a neutrality and reason and so on. And then you get up to 500, and that's the level of love. 540 is the level of joy. 600 is the level of peace. 700 to 1,000 is the level of enlightenment, full awakening. So Jesus calibrated at 1,000. It's important to know that these numbers, they're just numbers, but mathematically, it's actually a logarithmic scale. Meaning if it says 500 is 10 to the 500th power. If it says 200 is 10 to the 200th power, and so on. So actually it's not linear. It's like, I want people to be aware that as you go up, a huge expansion is happening. So Dr. David Hawkins says, when you move up to 200, when you're below 200, your energy that you bring to the situations of life, it tends to be destructive. It tends to be like, he calls it force. It tends to be like you're pushing and forceful because there's no flow in your life. So you're always going to have to be really pushy to get anything done when your consciousness is below 200. But when you get up to 200, the level of courage, you start to be like, I'm interested in personal growth and spiritual growth. I'm going to work on I'm going to courageously step into some really empowering solutions now. I'm going to learn about relationships, meditation, financial planning, take better care of my health. So from 200 to 500, you're on a journey of personal and spiritual growth. Then at 500, you reach the level of love. And this is why I really want to articulate this for our audience. At 500, another big shift happens because your life is dominated by love. Mm-hmm. You're leading from your heart in all the transactions of your life, right? So then magical, beautiful synchronicities start to happen for you. And your life is dominated by flow and alignment and synchronicities. And you don't have to plan and strategize and like do so much of there's all the personal growth work has been really important to get you to that point.
Right.
But once you get to that point, there comes a time where maybe your audience can relate to this. There's some personal growth teachers or books or systems or frameworks that really work for you before. And then there comes a point that is integrated and you're like, I feel like I'm outgrowing that teacher, or I feel like I'm outgrowing that paradigm or that framework or that toolkit. It was really helpful and empowering. And now it feels too rigid and it feels too limiting to me. So that could be a sign that you've gotten to the point where you're ready to break free from that it was in some ways a crutch that helped you to get to a higher level and then to permit yourself to also expand beyond that tool. So at the 500 level, that starts happening.
Yeah, I think that reflects back to books or movies where you watch something or you read something, then later you come back to it, a totally different view. I've had that happen. And I've scratched my head as to why. And yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, so we can have total gratitude that those tools, tactics, and strategies on our personal growth journey was perfect at a certain time, and then now is perfect to, with gratitude, let it go and move beyond it. The reason I'm bringing this up is because this new paradigm of these new children coming in, they're coming in at the 500 level.
Whoa. Whoa.
So we have to permit ourselves to be like, well, this is new territory for humanity.
Yeah.
All the old tools, tactics, and strategies, top 10 ways to get your children to behave, top 5 ways to encourage them to go to bed at a decent hour, how to control the screen time of your children, all these kinds of things. Consider the possibility that they work for children up till recently, and the new generation of children that are coming through are at a level where we need something new for them.
We do. And above all, if parents are vibrating down here and these little ones are here, how does a parent cope? Because they're going to go immediately and be triggered by their traumas and be triggered by how their parents brought them up. That's got to be a crazy world to try to. You work with these parents, huh?
Yeah, we have a coaching program, and it's relatively new. Actually, things are exploding right now because of the intensities of what's going on in the world. A lot of parents are like, wait, it was 2 weeks to flatten the curve, and now you're still doing what with our children? It's such a big hot mess in the school. Okay, I'm going to have to figure out about homeschooling. I've been homeschooling anyway, and you notice that, wow, when you spend more time with your children, or honestly, some days you feel like you might be, quote, neglecting your children and feeling all guilty, but then they're over in a corner building extravagant engineering projects out of cardboard because they're like, quote, bored, right, in the house, and they're doing these Da Vinci level inventions, and you're like, wait a minute, my kid is pretty awesome. You're watching all this unfold and you're asking, okay, maybe there's a higher win-win that's available here. Maybe it's time for me to consider, should I or should I not put my kids back in school? Maybe there's a better way where I can collaborate with local like-minded families to do a much more flexible, fluid, honoring, and customized learning journey for my children that isn't so schooly anymore. Like that my child is thriving when they're just like self-directed, interest-led, learning the way that they naturally, the inner curriculum that is already within each child is permitted to blossom, because it's not so rigid like in the school system. Now you learn math, now you learn science, now you learn English, bell. Okay, you were interested in English. Sorry, you got to close the book and get on to the next subject now because the bell has rung. This rigidity is just what a way to squash all of our children's genius and creativity, right? I know I'm preaching to the choir because you have a very open-minded audience, but this is the time where we can just start from scratch, be open to beautiful, creative possibilities that is way more awesome and amazing than we could have ever dreamed. This is the opportunity that's available right now.
Yes, yes. You have a term that you've been using called unschooling, not homeschooling,
Right.
but unschooling. What exactly does that mean to you?
Okay, well, I'm actually still new to all of this because my boy is 6 years old. How we got on this journey is like this. I should probably backtrack to say that my husband and I weren't even planning to have kids.
Okay.
So we were freedom loving hippies. We loved our, traveling. We loved our independence. And then in 2013, I came back from a meditation retreat and actually dragged my husband to the countryside because I wanted so much more stillness. And so we moved out of the city, and while living in the countryside, this sounds like a big tangent, but it will answer your question in a second. While we were living in the countryside, I was meditating so much better, so much peace, so much inspiration. And that's how I was able to write my first book, Super Wellness. And all this inspiration was channeling through. And whenever I was meditating or in my dream life, starting in 2013, month after month after month, this baby kept showing up in my dreams and meditations and educating me about this new generation that was coming through.
Wow.
And so some of what I share now came from the training I got before I even became the parent. So that's the information that is coming through. And in my new book and in some of these workshops is inspired by that. And he explained in my dreams and meditations that, look, I know that you guys don't want to be parents because you have a really clear idea of a paradigm that you don't like. That is absolutely true. This whole like sit down, shut up, authoritarian, you got to go to school, get good grades and all this stuff that neither my husband nor I resonate with is a paradigm that we didn't want. And we hadn't seen other alternatives of parenting. So we were like, well, we just don't want to be parents then because we don't want to be in that paradigm. When we're with our peer groups, our friends, like let's say you're planning a trip or something with a group of friends, renting a house, you would survey everybody, be like, hey, any preferences? Let's find something that works for everybody. But with the parenting paradigm, we kept noticing that everything is about behavior modification. Sit down, shut up, go to your room, all this stuff, all the tips, advice is like, how do you get your kid to behave properly? It's never about how do we, I mean, it's starting to be more conversation about how do you, awaken your kids' creativity and innovative spirit and all of that stuff. But for the most part, even that is kind of like, very specific to your idea of creativity and in as an adult, right? Versus just stepping back and creating a safety net for your child to just explore and blossom into whatever they're meant to be, which may be very different from what you were meant to be, right? To give them the safe space to explore all of that. And so my boy kept coming to me in dreams and meditation saying, look, my time to incarnate is now. And I've scoured the cosmos and decided I want to come to Earth. And I've picked you guys out of all of the choices. And it's not just me, though. Then he showed me this field of all these baby spirits.
No.
And they're all interconnected by these strands of light. And this huge web of light that he showed me, but I was feeling this complete, beautiful, peaceful, loving sensation as he shows me this. And he said, we're coming to Earth to blanket the Earth with this light. Now, the thing is that we're also here to bring actual practical solutions. So each of these balls of light that you see, we all have scoured the cosmos and we've all chosen the perfect set of parents. And the permutations and intricacies of how we each chose the perfect parents for our Earth journey and the timing of our arrival and incarnation and how we might be in certain communities, certain geographical locations to bring forth this new paradigm in different ways and be in similar communities together. And when we grow up, be collaborative in our solution making is so precise, so elegant, so intricately planned. He said, there's no way I can show it to you properly. You just have to let us come in and show it to you when we are here. And everything you believed about the old paradigm of parenthood that you didn't like is absolutely true. The new paradigm is completely different, and everything from the old paradigm just simply does not apply to us. We don't fit any of that stuff. So I can't convince you. You just have to let me come in to show it to you. And everybody has free will. So you guys have a free will not to conceive me. But just so you know, you're not just conceiving me, and he like highlighted his ball of light, but you are choosing to be part of all of this, the whole web work. Wow. And he said, if I don't get to incarnate through this plan, then he disappeared. The whole scene, he disappeared it. And he said, we'll just all go back to the drawing board because all of this is part of the plan. So he was like, no pressure or anything. Right. So I'm like, oh my goodness. So this happened over the course of months. And then I started telling my husband, and my husband's like, la, 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 la. I don't want to hear it. I'm not ready to have children. But in the end, our boy also appeared to him in a dream. During a yoga class at the end, when he's in Shavasana, he dropped into a dream state and they had a communication. And that's when my husband was like, all right, I think I could open to this. And so in the end, it was kind of funny because the baby energy got so strong all of a sudden, like the baby has to come, that has to come. And then my husband like wouldn't even touch me with a 10-foot pole for a couple of months. He was like, I don't know, I got to like get really clear about it. And then at a certain moment, we knew, we could feel it was the right moment. And so our child was conceived in one go in a conscious.
What a beautiful story. Oh my goodness. And it feels so intuitive, but that you were open to it. You were open. I mean, it's so now you have a 6-year-old and a
1.5-year-old.
1.5-year-old. Oh my goodness.
So our 6-year-old has taught us a lot, but our 1.5-year-old has taught us a lot too. So when our 6-year-old was about 3.5, he started articulating different things. 2 big things that I want to share. One is that he was in a beautiful preschool that was all organic, nature filled, and, you know, just like indoor, outdoor arts and crafts, just like they were supportive of organic, gluten-free, paleo or vegan diets. Like it was just like the perfect place, right? And still, when he was able to articulate, and he was only there 2 days a week, he said, Mama, I don't like it that they tell you to pee-pee and poo-poo when it's pee-pee and poo-poo time.
Right.
I don't like it that I'm not hungry when it's snack time and they say sit down and eat a snack, but maybe later I'm hungry. I just want to eat when my body says hungry.
Ooh, so in tuned. So in
So
tune.
I was like, well, yeah, okay, we're only there 2 days a week. I just kept being like, but it's so good. It's like, so there's so many other good things about it. And then gradually got to a point where by the time he was 4, he refused to leave the car. And he said sometimes he started articulating that sometimes he's really into like building blocks or something, but then they don't have a bell at preschool, but it's like, all right, you guys, we're going to go over here and do story time now. But he was like, but I was still like immersed in this block building project. Right. So he was like, I have my own internal rhythms that I have to honor. And I need you to support that. Please. I cannot leave this car. I'm going to go home and do my own. Like he was so strong about it that basically in the end, we had a talk with the head of that school, and the teacher was like, yeah, you're right. This kid is like really would do great as a homeschooler. Like he'll do great once they're able to convince him to do another project. He's like really engaged in these projects. So he gets a lot out of it. But I discovered that when we took him out of school, he got even more out of just being able to immerse himself deeply and fully, the kinds of stuff that he would build. And I was like, wow, okay, I'm starting to see now. And then when he was about 3.5, he would just, he started telling us about what he remembers from what he calls his space before he came to planet Earth.
Ooh, yes.
He tells us so many things about how it all works. And oh my goodness, I could just talk with you for a whole hour just from the stuff I've learned from him about that. But part of it is that he says, hey, Mama, my sister is still in space. She has to come now. My sister. And so he just kept like pushing us that he had a sister, and his sister was conceived when he was 5, because we felt like, okay, we're like homeschooling, and both of us have work that we are really involved with. And so we weren't sure we had space for a second child. But by the time our boy was 4, he started really pushing for this. Like, it's a sister. She's in space. She has to come now.
Wow.
Time has come. And so we were moving houses, and he kept saying, okay, when we get to the new house, my sister will be in that house. Then we got to the house. He said, my sister's still in space. Please bring her here now. All this kind of stuff. So lately, some of the really fun stuff that he says is like, Mama, on planet Earth, some people are confused about how to make a baby.
Really?
So how some people are like, oh my God, how are you going to tell your child about, like sex and conception and all this kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
Our boy said, some people on planet Earth think that the mama and baba kick their peepees together and that's how you make a baby. No, that's not how it works. How it works is that first in space, there's a space baby that looks on these screens, and then they decide to pick you as the mama and baba.
Mm-hmm.
And then they'll come to talk with you in your dreams and just make you feel that it's time to have your baby here. And then that will make you, the baby will make the mama and baba want to kick their peepees together. Uh-huh. And that's how the baby is made. If there's no space baby, there will be no Earth baby. That's how it works. People on planet Earth need to understand that. And I said, well, I work as a Chinese medicine practitioner in the clinic. Sometimes I work with couples, wonderful couples that would make amazing parents, but they're not having the easiest time conceiving. So I asked my boy, like, why do some of my patients that are such nice people have a hard time? And he says, well, first of all, they have to get a lot healthier in their bodies.
Sure.
And second of all, they have to listen to the space baby. So the space babies are trying to pick mamas and babas that are bright and shiny and healthy. First, then you get healthy, then the space baby will pick you, and then you have to listen. A lot of times the space babies are trying to talk to the parents, and then they don't hear. So if they don't hear, then they maybe aren't, it's basically what he's saying is a teamwork. And that, the timing of conceptions, all these things that we have to listen for those subtle signals. Sure. And that is not.
Well, there's some parents that would today, you'd think a lot of people will say that they shouldn't have had children. You've probably heard that reference, and it's very heartbreaking because those children do indeed have a tough time. But when you say they're listening, I do believe what Carolyn May says about spiritual contracts. I have basically, it helped me through my brother's suicide and some different things in my life. And I just talked to a younger student that came by yesterday, and she's struggling in life, really depressed. And I said, you are really needed on this planet. You are so needed. And I don't know how children, but I did it myself. We detach, we forget who we are and what we are, the love. And it's really heartbreaking. So,
yeah,
go ahead.
My thought about that is because we had the blessing of communications preconception, yes. I think we gave ourselves a much easier, smoother journey just by listening for that guidance. Some of the struggles, everybody comes to the planet with a different plan. And sometimes it's the struggle that we came here for in order to learn and grow and strengthen ourselves as souls, right? So we want to honor that too. And at the same time, there's a cascade of things that this new wave of children, my understanding, and also when my second child was in my belly, I communicated with her and she had a lot to say too about this new wave of children, that they came here to not engage with all the trauma and the drama and all of that anymore. And that they are so deeply grateful to all of us, you and I, and many of the adults listening to this show. We were the indigo warriors that had to alchemize a lot of the old stuff. My girl especially came through strongly. She said, I've waited millennia to incarnate on the planet because it had to get to this point. Thank you so much to all of the indigo warriors for clearing the way so that this new wave can even like the physics of it is even possible for them to come in, because they bring a very pure energy that was utterly incompatible with the old paradigm. And so we had to come through as the earlier waves to clear all the BS and, right a lot of the wrongs and do a lot of alchemy in our personal lives to heal that density, that darkness, do the shadow work, heal the trauma, go through those dark nights of the souls that were so heart-wrenching and intense and difficult. But because we did that work, now the field is very different and is actually friendly to this new generation of children that aren't interested in fighting indigo warrior wars. They're just here to bring forth new solutions, new paradigms now.
Since you've started in this coaching program with parents, are you finding, I hope in my deepest of hearts, more parents, more indigo, as you call it, parents that have evolved, have listened, have this beautiful now child already knowing, I call it basically. Do you find more of them?
Yeah, a lot of people are like, thank you so much for speaking up. I thought I was the weirdo that had this preconception guidance. I thought I was the weirdo that was called towards home birth, and that really I had to fight against some of my in-laws and family members to say, I want to do a home birth. I want to do not just delayed cord cutting, but maybe a prolonged, like a lotus birth, where you birth the placenta together with the child, like as gentle and soft of an entry as possible for these sweet, pure souls that are coming through. Right? So this actually goes back to your last question, which is that a lot of us had to do all that trauma healing work. And maybe with this new generation, if we choose to conceive them at the time that they were meant to conceive and not rush their birth moment, that they had a birth plan, to trust that there is a perfect moment of birth that was divinely aligned for this soul, right? To not try to mess with that, right? And then when they land, to have the gentlest birth possible. And then all those things that naturally unfold, like co-sleeping, attachment, parenting. These are tools, techniques, and strategies that have been available on the planet, but they're very intuitive. They just feel good. They feel right. It's a win-win. As a mom, when you do co-sleeping, you sleep better and the baby sleep better. You just feel good and right to keep your baby close until they feel their independence and they feel naturally drawn to sleep in their own bed again, right? It's a very smooth and gradual transition. And then listening to the child when they're in school. Are they having a good time in school? Some children do, and some children need some other support system, almost like treating every single child as if they're special needs. But the truth is that every child comes here with a very clear divine blueprint that is here to be expressed with our support and love, that they have already a curriculum that is wanting to be demonstrated and shown and nurtured, this inner curriculum that's available. Our job is really not to muck with that, but actually to support it and nurture it and allow it to blossom.
I think most teachers, friends of mine, would adamantly say that they teach by this rote conditional crap, as you say, in a gray box, that the kids are in a gray box.
Yeah.
They go out for 10 minutes where it should be flipped. Maybe they should be outside playing and creating and jumping on the bars and doing marbles. I remember doing marbles when I was in 6th grade, and it's less time inside in that constructive site. Do you see that in your unschooling at home with your children? Is that how it works?
Well, actually, it's very fluid. And some days my child gets really, so a big question is, we love nature time, of course. Like we love all the Waldorf stuff, the wooden toys just feels so good. Also the Montessori toys that are made of high quality wooden constructions. It just feels fun and good to hold in your hands, right? And so we love all that stuff. And we do still have some nature education programs that we have as part of our journey. And a lot of parents are like, well, how do you control the screen time? I don't want my child indoors, like in front of the screen. And this is something that I learned from the unschooling pioneer named Dana Martin, that I recommend highly everybody check out her work if you're interested in unschooling, which is different from traditional homeschooling, where you take a curriculum and do it on your kitchen table, which totally does not sound fun at all.
Not at all.
like accompanying your child, facilitating them, like, hey, honey, what are you into right now? Do you need some help researching it? Within whatever budget we have, let's see what tools we can give you to explore the passions that you have, right? So these days with the internet, it is how we research a lot of things.
Right.
My child, who I was never able to get to write ABCs, decided one day to start a pear store from the pears that on in our backyard tree. And then later he wanted to do a lemonade stand. Then he did an organic vegan ice cream stand. Next week, he wants to do a little juice stand. And so all of this involves him learning to read and write and do a lot of math, right? And so just like that, he's able to write all of his alphabets because he is serving a purpose. So this is how unschooling works.
Now, this is interesting because you're not giving them at a certain time to learn the ABCs and memorize them and then put them into sentences and constructions of words. You're talking about this child decided when the time came innately. Well, this is very different.
Yes. So this is how I am so confident that every child is coming here with an inner curriculum, an inner rhythm, an inner time clock, where they're supposed to activate into certain skill sets. And I think this is maybe some of what Rudolf Steiner was tuned into in terms of he's really educating the world about there's a certain time and rhythm, and don't even try to educate your child to learn to read and write until they're 7. That maybe that's just not necessary. Like, let them be exploring in their imagination and play more games and be outdoors and study how nature works, right? So, but with my child, he wanted to go on the computer and research different projects. So now, some days he's like, Mama, I want to do this electromagnet project. Can you tell me how electromagnetics is spelled so I can type it? So he can type it on the computer, and he does research and he watches these shows, like Science Max and Brave Wilderness and all of these really cool shows, all out of his own passions and interests. And we were at the park selling his ice cream, which is $2 each. And this guy who was at the park was like, okay, kid, $2 each. Let me have 2 of them. Here's a $20. And then he just like right away gave the guy 16 back. And he was like, how old are you? You just did that math just like that? He was like, yeah, 20 minus 2 times 2 is 4. So 20 minus 4 is 16. Here's 16. And how old are you? Are you 8 or 9 or 10? He's like, no, I'm 6. And where do you go to school? He's like, I do homeschool. How did you learn that? He was like, well, I just did it. I don't know. So these are the things that happen on the daily. And I'm not saying it like I'm a proud mama. I am a proud mama, but this is happening all the time with unschooling children, because they're given the full permission to allow their interest to blossom. And this in alignment, like the math was in alignment with his, lemonade stand or ice cream store, which is in alignment with him saving up money to buy cool toys. Like, he's so motivated to do his accounting. He's reading a Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Robert Kiyosaki's book for kids about how to like build a better business, all at 6 years old, right?
Gosh.
All this stuff happens naturally because they're supported to learn whatever they're interested in. It's all aligned fully with their passions and interests, which really breaks my heart about my own upbringing, that my interests and yours, maybe so many of us, were like squash is like, sit down, shut up, go to school. And our passion for interest, we are innately lovers of learning. We love to learn. And what a way school squashes that passion, right? Okay. So we've never had to do any rigid like curriculum design or anything. When our child is interested in something, then we support it, including allowing him to research things on the screens on the computer. Mm-hmm. And then I'll just check in like, hey, honey, I'm done doing my work in 10 minutes. Are you done watching your show over there? Should we go to the trails? And he's like, no, there's 15 more minutes to my show. It's like, okay, honey, we can wait till your show is done. And then we can go for our trail hike. Does that sound good? Okay. So there's no pressure. If we try to control something, then rebellion happens, then it's exhausting. You got to police on it constantly, right?
Sounds
But
like
for us,
cooperation, a cooperation of an equal status, which is definitely not in this paradigm. It's always the looming parent, the big balloon kind of, no, you cannot do that,
and
this.
it's like so many things like that I think talk about the bullying, right? Because we don't bully at home, because we have an honoring, respectful, win-win relationship with everybody at home.
Right.
Our children go out into the world in situations where somebody acts like a bully, and they just don't engage. They're just like, what an alien. Like, who does that?
Yeah.
Right. And so many interesting things. Like one time when I guess my boy was only 3 at this point, but my husband was like not helping out with chores. I don't know. I was cranky at him and I was speaking to him not very kindly, like not in kind of a cold tone of voice.
Yeah.
And my boy just came and hugged me and said, "Mama, you're talking to Papa like a stranger." And he just hugged me. And then that was it. Right? Like in that energy, because when that shows up, these children, they know that that's not our natural state, and they somehow is encoded within them to not engage with them. They just see that this is a strange moment in time, and they can harmonize with it with love. And when they engage with, for example, when we're in the store, like, there's different checkout counters. He can be like, "Oh, I want to go to that guy because he looks happy and fun." And that guy doesn't look happy and fun. Can we go to aisle 3 or, register 3? Like he can just sense from afar, being an energetically sensitive being, these kinds of things. So if somebody brings a bullying kind of energy, in this paradigm, these children may not even get into those situations to begin with because they're so intuitive and energetically sensitive. So there's a different kind of street smart that they can bring, because especially those of us as parents, that we support them in honing that intuitive and energetic awareness.
Sure. Wow. So you've got quite a bit of stuff on your website. I'm so grateful for that. And you have a coaching program structured for parents, and you said here grandparents. I think that's great. Get the whole family into this. There's I might be saying his last name wrong. I've been listening to a Dr. Polensky or sorts, and he's been stating, ask questions of your child. Don't answer it. I really have never heard that in such an eloquent and beautiful way. And it sounds like a lot of that is what you're doing. You're asking the beloved, the little one, is this a good time to leave now? No, I have 15 more minutes. Okay, we can work around that. That's really different than answering them with asking the question and answering it for them.
Oh my goodness. And for all the parents and grandparents out there, you're going to love this. When the child asks you something like, "How does this work? Why is the sky blue?" Pause before you answer the question. Ask them why they think the sky is blue.
Yes.
Like with the COVID, when it was 2 weeks to lockdown, and I was like, "Honey, what do you think about this whole germ situation?" And you know what he said?
No, what? I love it.
He said, "Mama, I'm not scared of this germ, but I guess some people are. But I think maybe I will be," he was 5 at the time. "I think I might be like 7 when it's over." I was like, "No, they said 2 weeks to flatten the curve." He's like, "Well, I don't know. Maybe. I think maybe it will be like, I will be like 7, 2 years from now when they forget about the germ." So this is the stuff that if you just take a pause, instead of trying to bombard your child with your perspective, take a step back and ask them what they think about what's going on in the world. And you might be shocked and surprised by the kind of things that they're tapped into, the knowledge, the wisdom. And then the next moment, they might have a meltdown because they have low blood sugar and they need a snack, or they're really tired and cranky and need a nap right now, right? Like they do the things that children do. But in those moments, if you allow the opportunity, the magic, the beauty, the learning and growth that's available for us as adults is so ginormous and so beautiful. I'm just excited for you guys to open to explore that together with me.
I am too. I want to see this generation. You know, I'm a big lover and proponent of healing your body, healing your mind. You know, the whole thing, the body mind connection, and the heart or the soul, whatever you want to call it, the planet. I do interviews all along those particular subject lines, and I think what really caught my attention, to be honest, was the blindfold perception, because it brought back a memory when I was a kid in bed. I didn't want to get up and turn off the light to go to sleep. And I remember trying so hard to just use my mind innately to turn it off, turn it off. I don't know what kept me from it, but I have seen the video on your website of your son, I don't know what age, but reading completely blindfolded. And that I was like, I know it can be done. I don't know how.
Yeah, so we watched this documentary called Superhuman. I recommend highly for all the parents,
Right.
families out there. It's called Superhuman. I'm spacing out on the interviewer's name, but she has some really amazing intuitive gifts. The documentary showcases a little bit of her abilities being demonstrated and scientifically validated, but she brings complete beginners to learn some of these skills. And then she goes around the world traveling and looking at, you know, a whole handful of different schools and systems and teachers teaching children and adults alike to learn different skills like blindfold perception, remote viewing, intuitive abilities, telekinesis, telepathy, these things that we call like superhuman, to show that actually we, even beginners, can activate into this state pretty easily if you're willing to drop in and cultivate it. It's trainable. It's our innate natural skill set as humans. It's just that we learned math, science, all these things, but we didn't learn intuition and, you know, like all third eye activation, energy awareness, spiritual awareness, financial awareness, physical body health awareness, so many important skills to be a fully integrated human that are just not honored at all in the school system, right? So it's not that math and science and history, those aren't important subjects. It's just such a tiny sliver of the whole possibility. So Superhuman really demonstrates that. And I watched it with my child and he was like, Mama, I think I want to learn how to do that. So the woman who made the film, she hosted some classes with some of the other teachers for children to learn blindfold perception. And within the first class, my child got activated. And it was only 4 short little 1-hour classes, and 100% of the children, I think they do age 5 to 12, but in my experience since then, I've seen a lot of children 5 to 9 is kind of the sweet spot where children tend to activate into this perception really easily. And at this point, my child at 6, he's practiced a few more times and he's able to read little barcodes, like the alphanumeric codes in the barcode. He's able to read whole books, every single page.
Completely blindfolded.
Completely blindfolded. And a couple of weeks ago, he was like, Mama, I wonder if I can see behind my head. So he put on his blindfold. At first, he could see in the front. And then I put some objects to the side and he kind of started stretching his perception and he could see. And then I was like okay, how many fingers? 2. How many fingers? 3. And I'm like, what am I holding behind you? Oh, a pen, a cup, like all this stuff he was able to see behind his head. So I'm like, okay.
Wow.
Cool. You know, so I don't know what that means, but it means that he's able to, you know, he's able to just play in a more expansive kind of way because it's supported in our family.
I think my hat is very tipped to you, both you and your husband, for allowing this and encouraging it so he can go on with it in life, you know, go on beyond this, you know. You're making me have goosebumps right now because it's exciting to know that the work that you're doing is allowing this, and parents are rising up. There are parents out there. Yes, there are parents very closed off. I know trauma is a big part of that. And, you know, I love Dr. Gabor Mate's trauma on trauma, but, you know, I love that you're exploring it. You are an explorer. There it is. And that you're doing this with your little ones. Where can they find you?
Okay, my website is dredithubuntu.com. That's Dr. Edith, Ubuntu is spelled ubuntu.com. DrEdithUbuntu.com. And on the homepage, you'll see you can link to a lot of things. But if you're especially interested in the Luminous kids and family programs that I have offered, it's still small right now because I'm focused on writing the book. The book will be, I had an astrologer pick the date, January 21st, 2022, the book will come out. And so then after that, I can focus on building a lot more additional supportive programming. Right now, I just really need to keep it simple, which is just one parent coaching program on Thursdays, twice a month. And then for parents that have been in our program for a while, and if it feels like a good fit, and if their schedules allow, we have a kids program that's for kids 5 to 9 on Monday afternoons, where we do sacred geometry,
Yes.
little qigong, but sometimes we're doing engineering projects. You know, kids like explosive stuff. For a while, all of our children were interested in the blindfold perception game, so we did that for a while. Then the children say they're sick of it, they want to do something else, so we did some other stuff. We did some projects where we learned about entrepreneurial skills. We designed logos, we built these little mock stores, and the kids were amazing. Like, so many cool. So a lot of times parents ask me, like, what's the curriculum you have for the kids class? Like, also no curriculum. I just ask the kids, what are you guys into? Ooh, let's research. Yeah. So we flow together as a group of kids.
Oh my.
And then I talk to the parents. I'm like, okay, well, we all have budgets here. Like, what's economical? What can we do with their interest with just found objects that are easy to use from our household items? And then we just like, it's this magical win-win thing again with the parents, with the kids. And so we've navigated into fun projects just as the kids' interests dictate. So that's the kids program, but that's only open to parents that have already been enrolled in our Thursday coaching program for a while first.
I have a question. I had a good friend of mine in Montana I met last year, and she was into some of this type of stuff back in '97. And she asked me of somebody, I cannot remember the name. She was going to send it to me, but had you heard of this person who was kind of a pioneer in it? Is there going to be availability that you'll be able to teach teachers how to do this kind of stuff eventually? I mean, after the book, of course. Are you hoping that you can get more people to teach what you're doing? I guess they'd have to follow you and watch you. This is exciting.
Yeah, so I think in this new paradigm, we're talking about this I brought up the scale of consciousness from Dr. David Hawkins, because this paradigm really lives at the 500 plus level of consciousness, right? From the 200 to 500 level of consciousness, that's where we're really focused on tools, tactics, and strategies. And I totally trust, because we're living in this consciousness that is about being as present as possible, loving, like really interested in just doing, I mean, all parents are doing their very best. In this new paradigm, we do it in a way that is always aligned to the win-win. You as a parent, it's no accident that you have a certain skill set, a certain access to resources, that your child chose you as a parent because that is the perfect supportive environment for them to blossom into who they're meant to be. So there's what my child is interested in, which is aligned with some of the resources I have available, but you can do better with what you've got too. And together we can support each other in this paradigm, right? So I cannot imagine myself as being like a certifier of, you know, I'm here to co-create together with you, all the like-minded parents. And so to the degree that I can serve and support that, I would love to. So I'm just open to hearing suggestions of how I can support people better and better as time goes on, right? We're all navigating brand new territories together, and I'm not like delusional. Like, I'm very humbled by it, actually. Like, I'm not an expert. I'm just sharing our family's journey, because a lot of people are like, wow, I'm going through similar things. Maybe I can create a supportive environment where we as parents all learn and grow together and find out what works and share and support one another, because community is so key to navigating these new experiences. And it's just wonderful that we get to share it together.
I'm super excited for your work and looking forward to your book as well. What is it called again, coming out?
It's going to be called Luminous Kids also. working title right now is Luminous Kids, the New Human is Here.
Ah, beautiful, beautiful. Well, I look forward to it. Okay. And again, you can check her out. I'm going to put in the YouTube link her information where you can get a hold of her. She's got a lot of goodies on her website. Again, thank you, Dr. Edith. I hope I can call you that. It's so wonderful to actually talk with you and give your time today. This is WonHeart TV. I'm Jolynn. We've started a new Patreon where we're trying to build a community of people where you have a safe place to talk about these kinds of subjects. So join us for $5 and you can get some different kind of videos on our channel there on YouTube, WonHeart TV, or go to oneheartinfo.org where all our videos are going to be located. We'll do another replay of this. We're going to do another replay of this. Thank you so much. Oh my God, you've inspired me. So have a beautiful day. And thank you for all your information and all the goodies that come down the pipe.
Thank you, Jolynn, for having me. Thank you for all the amazing work that you've done. I want to reiterate what my child said, that this new generation wouldn't have been possible for them to be here if it weren't for all the work that you put into uplifting and brightening this planet with all the beautiful work that you've been doing. So thank you so much.
Yes. Yes, yes. Well, thank you again. And to all of you, peace, love you all. Stay true to yourself. Bye-bye.